I would be anxious too. I would not want what's currently being proposed in my city. One of the things I see in the current design is a singular solution. It says all we're accommodating as far as rubber tire traffic is concerned, all we're accommodating is people in a freeway mentality, a freeway philosophy.
So what we have here in the red is the original design, as proposed now.
As proposed last winter, I believe. So
Okay.
it's essentially
Close
the same.
to the original design.
And then you see in contrast to that, a straight alignment.
That's the yellow.
That's the yellow, which is, in my estimation, a viable alternative for what this crossing could look like. Now, it does a number of things. It brings what is the equivalent of 20 city blocks back into urban use. It straightens the freeway. Now, everybody knows who lives in the community that there's that very awkward jog as you drop down from the hill, Fort Vancouver, and get onto I-5. Well, with the freeway further downstream, the jog will be a gentle, sweeping, large S-turn. So when we have geometry that is not simple, in a complex environment of off-ramps and on-ramps, you create congestion, and with consequence of congestion is a less safe bridge. So I know that if you straighten the alignment, you gain a lot of safety, and I would think fewer fatalities over the life of the bridge. One of the fundamental choices you have when putting freeways into urban environments is the collector-distributor.
Or the straight line bridge that you're proposing has two levels.
It has two levels.
And you have traffic going north on one level and south on the other level?
No, what we have is we have an upper level that's dedicated to interstate movement.
Okay, that's your high-speed traffic in the upper level.
Right, and that's for people going between, say, Portland and Seattle.
Okay.
That's the traffic that uses the interstate for regional movements. That traffic doesn't want to commingle with the shore-to-shore traffic,
It's
which
more
is
of a bypass.
Right. Now, the present design deals with that by having those multiple lanes on the shoulders. Okay, so if we take those multiple lanes and just bring them underneath and keep them separate, then the through traffic basically moves through without any conflict.
There are people that would love to have light rail on this bridge. Does it accommodate light rail?
Absolutely.
Does it accommodate pedestrians, bikes? Where do you put that?
The arterial level, where traffic is moving slower, where the shoulders can be wide, where people can be seen. Let's look at the individual communities and the choices that they have before
All
them.
right.
David, we're looking at a comparison between the existing proposal, its impacts on Hayden Island, and what would result if we were to consider a straight alignment.
So what's in red here? What is this red?
Those are city blocks.
Okay.
The smaller ones are 200-foot city blocks, so imagine downtown Portland. The existing freeway basically occupies a footprint that is about this expansive through Hayden Island. And it creates a noise footprint that basically envelops the majority of the developmental land on Hayden Island. What I ask myself is how could we leverage this freeway investment to make Hayden Island a place where 3, 4, 5, 6, 10,000 people might want to live in a transit-oriented development that would be able to advantage the light rail station and create a wonderful place that is yet another pearl on the string that forms the necklace of I-5.
Rather than consume it with this huge freeway.
Right. Well, from my point of view, it takes Hayden Island off the map relative to a viable urban place for people to live and work. How can you have a transit-oriented development where people live and work if they don't like living there because of the freeway noise? It's not going to work. So if you're going to invest in a station, in my opinion, it makes sense to commingle both the rubber tire and the steel wheel in a way that the station can actually serve a residential community that can be proud of where they want to live. shows a contemporary sensitivity to how to place and contain the noise of a freeway within an urban setting. In fact, if this was done on Hayden Island, this would be a showplace for the world of how to contain the objectionable noise of a freeway. I think Vancouver should have a street-level connection between the waterfront and Fort Vancouver. In what's currently being proposed, you cannot do that.
The current proposal divides the city.
Right, much as it occurs now. Okay, so I wanted a solution that reconnected Fort Vancouver with Lower Vancouver and made a more continuous connection of the waterfront for urban enjoyment and brought the downtown of the city into the waterfront experience. What's in red is the actual footprint of the current proposal that would not be there with the straight alignment. Now the noise shadow, you'll notice here, is a little bit wider because I assumed that we would not contain the noise within a sound barrier. But I would think on the Vancouver or the Fort Vancouver side we would do that, so we'd bring in the sound barrier. But what I found fascinating about this is the stacking of the collector, distributor, and the through lanes actually ends up with a smaller footprint in Fort Vancouver than the current proposal or even the current freeway. So it reduces the land take in Fort Vancouver. It connects the tourist portion of the fort with downtown Vancouver with a city street that does go through this forest of columns that supports the freeway. But I would think that that would be a wonderful opportunity for an artist and engineer to collaborate to really suggest something like maybe old growth trees that connect the fort with what is the river and the trading town, and it creates a wonderfully rich pedestrian environment in which a visitor from Portland could take light rail over to Vancouver on a weekend, get off the train, 3 blocks, and you're enjoying the cultural resource that is Fort Vancouver. So what I saw missing from this project was really that broader civic vision for how we can control this infrastructure to make it actually contribute to the betterment of our communities. So if you look at a strategy for containing and controlling your infrastructure, you can bring back a way of life, which if you look at the historic pictures of Vancouver, people are crying out to re-experience. We're not designing the bridge to meet the needs 30 years from in the future. We're designing a bridge to meet the physical realities of a sustainable bridge that must be valid 200 years from now.
So once we build this, it's going to be around for a couple of centuries, and we want to make sure we're not too nearsighted.
You create a transportation platform that future generations can manipulate so that they can take advantage of whatever transit opportunities they are presented with.
This is something that I think that the community could get behind. This is something that I could get behind. When did you first present this to the CRC, this alternative?
Oh, a little over a year ago.
And since then, they've thrown out their current design and started with something new. Why wouldn't they consider this design?
Well, we do things in this country in a rather odd way. We are process-driven. We put our decision-making into a series of steps. Once you've passed that step, it's very, very difficult to retreat and create a different direction to a project.
Well, we're so far down the road. What can we do at this point?
Well, you haven't poured any concrete. True. You haven't expended a lot of money on design. You have, within this notional approach, you have the ability to save tremendous urban impacts, environmental impacts, a half, maybe 3/4, maybe even $1 billion in the initial outlay to build this. I would like to think that we have a community that would want to see the right thing done. And if I were ODOT and WashDOT or the governors, I would say, okay, find a small group of people, half dozen people, get them together for 3 or 4 weeks. Transportation planner, real good one. Bridge engineer, real good one. Architect, real good one. Throw darts at this, but struggle with it to try to eke out what is the advantage of it, and then respond, react. Say, is it something that should be considered or not? Yeah, I would hope that we do have leadership that wants to have their picture on the wall be recalled by future generations as that's the person that made this project possible, instead of the footnote that said the reason why Vancouver and Hayden Island are but a ghost of what they were in the past is that guy on the wall over there let this happen.